Hi everybody, it's Sister Lee. I wanted to do a video this week just to kind of explain some things and hopefully get you off to a running start with our parts of speech. So what I've done for you here, and I'll put it in the announcements that you can download and use if you need, is kind of condense everything from the chapter, because there's a lot going on, into something that you can print on one sheet of paper if you do front and back. That condenses everything to kind of the essential elements, the most important things. And then I'm going to discuss some of this with you. I'm not going to go over everything because some of it is pretty straightforward. Some of it we won't be really working with a lot this semester, but I do want to emphasize a few things that are going to come up over and over in the course of the semester, especially with our sentence diagrams. And so that's what we're going to do. So the 8 parts of speech we have first is nouns. We're all pretty familiar with those. And you're doing a worksheet on that, so that should be pretty straightforward. Pronoun, there's a lot going on, and we're going to be doing a couple of different pronoun worksheets over the course of the semester. So just kind of keep this in the back of your head. It's not terribly essential that you know terms, but we need to know how things are functioning and kind of the general categories, especially in personal versus impersonal. And we'll be seeing this as a diagram, but it's not hugely important. We'll be talking about clauses later in the semester, and those words that begin a relative clause, so that's kind of one of the more important ones. Verbs, will definitely be addressing verbs a lot, transitive versus intransitive, which is just the difference between the verb being followed by a direct object or an indirect object. We're pretty familiar with the be verbs and their different tenses. And then the one I do want to highlight, I've kind of highlighted the ones that are the most important or that cause students the greatest stress in the course of the semester. So I did highlight linking verbs. We don't normally think in terms of category of linking verbs or use them all the time, but we don't think about what they are. And that's going to be huge when it comes to sentence diagramming. So you need to make sure you have a good understanding of linking verbs and which ones they are. Keep in mind that it's verbs of sense and kind of becoming verbs. Like appearing or become or seeming, kind of the more intangible verbs. And there's a good list in your book on page 27, and you'll probably want to mark that, or maybe put a list of linking verbs on a 3x5 card so you can refer to it easily. As we're doing sentence diagramming, you're definitely going to need to make sure that you're identifying the type of verb correctly. Verb phrases, we're going to definitely deal with that later on in the semester, so just kind of have a general idea, but we'll get into a lot more detail about that. Adjectives and adverbs, and I've highlighted these, mostly the questions that they're answering, because that helps you determine placement in diagramming. So adjective, remember, is modifying a noun or a pronoun, or they can be modifying a clause that's functioning as a noun, which we'll get to later. But keep in mind that adjective answers the questions, which one, and that can be possessives, pronouns, articles, all function as adjectives. How many is no. We don't think of no as being an adjective, but it's describing something. It's describing that there are none of that noun. And then what kind? Descriptors, colors are also adjectives. Again, pretty straightforward, but that sometimes gives people grief later down. We're not terribly worried about predicate versus attributive adjectives. You just need to be able to identify them. Adverbs are a little bit trickier. We often think of adverbs. People say it's something that ends in ly and that modifies a verb. But keep in mind that adverbs can modify adjectives and another adverb. And it passes the test of movability. So you can move it around in the sentence. I ate quickly. I quickly ate. And the sentence still carries the same meaning. So that's another thing to test for adverbs. And they answer the questions how, when, and where. Those questions are going to be so important as we're doing our diagramming. So just keep that in mind, because that's going to determine where things go in our diagrams. The next thing I highlighted that is pretty important, especially when it comes to diagramming, is prepositions. They're these tiny little words that we use all the time and don't really think about what they're doing or how they're functioning. But when it comes to understanding grammar and diagramming sentences, they're going to play a huge role. So the easiest way to determine prepositions is to ask can I do it to an apple or a cloud? And there's a whole big list in your book on page 36. And again, it might be helpful to mark that or to copy these on a 3x5 card or something that you can refer to easily as you're doing diagrams or taking quizzes. Oh, and I should mention, I think the digital books, the pagination is a little bit different. So if you can't find it exactly on that page, look around and it should be close by. So prepositions in and of themselves aren't terribly important for our purposes, but it's the phrases. So you need to be able to easily identify something as a preposition to understand the phrase that it's introducing. And prepositional phrases can function either as adverbs or adjectives. And that again is going to determine where it's going to go on your sentence diagram. And it's going to answer the same questions that we had here above related to adjectives and adverbs. That's something that people struggle with, is where to put things on a diagram, and that will help you. The last couple of things aren't terribly important, but I want to cover them anyway. We have conjunctions, which are the connecting words or phrases. We will be talking a little bit more about subordinating conjunctions when we're talking about diagramming clauses and things like that. And then interjections really don't have a lot of concern as far as what we're doing. So I'm hoping that that kind of helps you understand what's going on and gives you an idea of what you need to focus on as we move forward. You can definitely use these cheat sheets. I'll be giving you several throughout the semester. You can definitely use them on your quizzes or exams and as you're diagramming or whatever. So I'm hoping this will be helpful. Again, if you have any questions, if there's anything that's unclear on what we've talked about or on anything else, please let me know.